Hello. This is my closing statement, my closing thoughts on Wings of Liberty, the first installment of StarCraft 2. And there is a bit of that in the last video of the campaign finale, the all-in mission. So if you wanna listen to some thoughts of mine about StarCraft 2 in general, not just campaign but multiplayer as well, about last 20 minutes of that video is me talking about all that stuff. And at first I thought I wouldn't be making this video because I already delivered what I thought was a satisfying campaign ending thought. But then I realized that that speech was a bit more about StarCraft 2 in general, multiplayer, pro gaming, all that stuff, and I haven't really talked about campaign itself much. So here is me talking about the campaign, and I'm gonna start from the beginning, although I feel that some of it might be things I already mentioned in introduction to StarCraft 2 or talked somewhere along the way. Might even mention something in Brood War videos or vanilla StarCraft videos. But I feel like to best add a structure to this, I'm gonna have to start from the beginning. So here we go. I got StarCraft, I think it was 2010, maybe 2009, when the beta, it's the second year of beta, I remember it was early in the year. And I remember the first time I heard about StarCraft, they were sending waves of beta keys. And the beta keys were very expensive. I think the first beta keys were going for like $1,000 because the game is obviously so popular. So people were really paying top price for it. And I remember back at the time, I mean, I didn't know what Blizzard policies are now, but you could basically register as many accounts as you wanted on Battle.net and just subscribe to their pay to opt-in. And I did that as well. And I remember not getting the key, and it was sort of, I still feel a bit irritated with Blizzard that Blizzard don't reward loyal customers with beta keys, and that's what I find annoying. They do give out beta keys for like community members, high profile community members, site owners, stuff like that. But I felt a bit disappointed that for someone who's been playing their games for such a long time, even been playing World of Warcraft some, they don't give you preferential treatment, they don't give you beta keys, and I still haven't gotten a single beta key from Blizzard. Not Overwatch, not Heroes of the Storm, not Hearthstone, nothing. Either way, at the time I was quite desperate for a beta key because things were going south for me. It was a recession in the United States, I was out of the job, I was getting quite depressed and desperate, and because it was a recession, everyone was sort of in the same position. None of my friends were employed at the time, and you felt really like you were in, I don't know, late stages Soviet Union, where people, you know, were out of the jobs and were really desperate, and you know how Russians are. So I really wanted to play StarCraft, and I thought it would bring me peace of mind, and in many ways it did. But the point is, I was desperate enough for it that I paid someone $200 while unemployed for a beta key, and I thought it would pull me out of depression, and as I said, in some ways it did. So the funny thing about it was, I bought the key from a guy, and about a week later they sent out another wave of beta keys, which pretty much turned it into an open beta, because at this point they sent out so many beta keys, everybody got one. And the price for the key was basically at that point like maybe $10-20. So that really made me rather disappointed at my timing. But once I picked up the game itself, I immediately fell in love. It was everything that I loved about Brood War, except it was wrapped in a very comfortable and convenient accessible interface, like unlimited selection or multiple building selection. So it was everything I desired it to be, and it was so fun. Like, if you look at the maps that were there in the beginning of Wings of Liberty, especially in beta, you'll see that first of all, vast majority of them were imbalanced, and I think vast majority of them were imbalanced in favor of Terran. Of course, there were like no one knew how to play. Obviously, if they're kind of things, I don't know who would be the most overpowered there now, because most maps favored Terrans, and Terrans were pretty strong. Protoss had insane warping mechanics, much more powerful than they are, and Zerg had those one supply, what was it, 2 armor, regeneration roaches. So if you would bring back, even if Zerg was in many ways underpowered, if you would bring back that Stefano strategy that he was just maxing out roaches at what, like 11 minutes, that thing, if you would be able to live to 11 minutes, Zerg would never lose. But of course everyone back then was pretty bad at the game, and so it was a bit of a mayhem. But the reason I'm saying is that try to, if you want to go back and look at the maps that were used during the beta, try to disregard what you know about balance now, what you know about playing now. It just doesn't fit. And just look at how those maps are. Those maps were tiny. Those maps were with many entrances. Those maps were with very uncomfortable expansion locations. Those maps were hilarious. I mean, you might have complained about balance, you might have complained about well, pretty much balance, what else are you going to complain about on maps? But they were always full of action, you know? It's not like now I feel just, it was so extreme, you were always on a razor's edge. And I feel a lot of people would say that that's a bad thing, that, you know, when you play in an RTS game, you want it to be a cerebral chess match, not, you know, a knife fight. But back then, knife fight, you know, they describe Zerg versus Zerg as that. But back then, every matchup was pretty much a knife fight. It was a massive amount of fun, and I actually recently forced some new players play on beta maps, and I think they didn't enjoy it, but it was so much fun for me, just extreme, you know, you're always under pressure, 100% of the time. And yeah, those maps were the biggest treasure of the game. And yeah, and that's also when it was revealed, the Blizzard mantra of balance in the game was revealed. That they're not going to balance anything, no matter how overpowered something is, they wouldn't balance it for months. I remember the first thing that was really, like, there were things that were overpowered, but, you know, sort of like, because everyone was bad, we didn't really know that those things were overpowered. But what happened first was some buff, I don't remember what buff, they buffed mech, Terran mech, and it was unbeatable. Like, you just couldn't touch it. And that's when actually, that's the time when Avila became famous. Avila wasn't that good before that. But when they, you know, if you know Avila, you know his style. He's very turtly. He doesn't really have high APM, or, you know, at least when I played, he didn't really have good micro. You know, his micro might have improved. But yeah, that's when they bugged mech, and that's when Avila really, a lot of Terrans actually shot up to the top of the ladder because you just couldn't beat mech at all. And it was so bad that it was overpowered, but they didn't patch it for like 2 months, I think, which was completely unacceptable to, considering how overbearingly powerful it was. But yeah, I had great time in beta. I did quite good at the top tournaments. I remember I did like top 8 at Craft Cup, top 16 at every Zotac, top 16 at Gosa coaching tournaments. And I mean, nowadays, if you hear that, Craft Cup top 8, Gosa coaching top 16, Zotac top 16, it doesn't mean anything to you. But you gotta understand that back in the day, back when beta was out, there were no big tournaments. That meant that back then, placing top 16 in Craft in Zotac was like placing top 16 in GSL these days. All the best players were in Zotac. I mean, I understand that back then, as I said, we were all noobs, but among all of us noobs, I was definitely one of the best players in the world. Although I was consistently average, so to put it, because other players that would be there with me, they would get noticed by winning some tournament or something like that. I never really got that lucky break when I would go to a tournament final or something like that. Those tournaments anyway. I did go to a final and even won some of the smaller tournaments. Some of the tournaments that weren't like GSL. But it was a good time. I definitely enjoyed it, and that was like the first introduction of me to actually being successful, really successful in anything, and yeah, how much effort it's taken. As I've said, I was then unemployed, so I really didn't have anything to do. There was a lot of StarCraft in my life. Anyway, so the then campaign came out. And the campaign came out with the official release of the game. And the official release of the game also meant official release of the ladder. And of course that would imply that all the pro gamers would go on ladder and they would try to get to the top of the ladder right away. And I think that might have been one of my strategic mistakes, that I didn't try to do that. Because for me personally, Wings of Liberty, StarCraft, Brood War, vanilla StarCraft, those games meant a lot to me. They were a big part of my life, and honestly I found a lot of in Brood War I found an outlet for a lot of my competitive energy, and I'm very thankful for that. And as I've said in my Brood War videos and vanilla StarCraft videos, I really think that StarCraft 2 campaign, StarCraft 1 campaign is one of the best campaigns in a game ever. It really drawn a lot from all the good plot lines of movies like Alien, Predator and Starship Troopers, and they did really good job paying homage to those games. So for me, StarCraft will always be something special. So with that in mind, the first few weeks, and I think it was like 2 weeks of playing, that I would ignore the ladder completely and play the campaign. And the campaign was quite honestly amazing. First of all, I guess the bad things. The bad things were that really, compared to the original StarCraft, Wings of Liberty campaign was extremely simplified. There wasn't much plot or plot twist there at all. There was introduction of some characters like Nova or Tosh or Tychus, and that was an introduction, and the Prince Valerian as well, and Horner, but those introductions actually didn't lead anywhere. Those characters never became important. So unlike Phoenix or Tassadar, whose characters were developed as well as they could back in the day, they really failed to even achieve that level of development with much bigger access to between mission plot lines and dialogue and cutscenes. So the complexity of the plot was definitely disappointing. It wasn't complex at all. Another thing that was disappointing is Jim Raynor. And I think that's part of the reason why StarCraft turned from clever sci-fi into rambling nonsense, a vehicle to deliver a multiplayer experience. Basically, they put a check mark in and say, yeah, we have a campaign. And this is Jimmy Raynor, yes. Jim Raynor in original StarCraft was bald, slightly chubby, and a bit of a simpleton in the beginning of the game. By the end of the game, he rose to the challenge, and he became a full-fledged leader of the rebellion. But he never really stopped being an everyman. He was a believable character, so to put it. Maybe if he was unbelievable, it's not because he's like Thor, God of Thunder, but because he's maybe too simple to lead. But then again, he never really led alone. He always led with assistance of Phoenix or Tassadar or Zeratul, some of his loyal comrades who were perhaps a bit more clever than he was. But when Wings of Liberty came out and you saw Raynor, portrayed as, as I said, Thor, Chris Hemsworth, with those massive arms and stuff, and he got himself a hair transplant, and he was some kind of bitter leader of rebellion. There was no bitterness in Raynor and Brood War, and I understand that it could have been developed because of all the things that he went through, but that had to be put into the campaign. If you want to transform one of the main characters, you gotta let people see why you did that. And they didn't. And another thing that was really sort of like a red flag is Tychus. When the hype was being built up by Blizzard for this game, at first you actually didn't even know who was in the suit. We just saw the suit, and you automatically assumed that it was Raynor. And the truth is, it should have been Raynor. Tychus, for some reason which I don't understand, got the most badass entrance in Wings of Liberty of any character. And who is Tychus? Why should we care about Tychus? None of those questions are answered in this campaign. So, Wings of Liberty definitely didn't live up to our expectations as far as intelligent plotline or even interesting plotline. But I think most people would agree with that, but also most people at the time didn't really care, weren't concerned about that, because it was a reintroduction to the characters of the game. There really isn't all that much that was revealed. I mean, there was Zeratul Prophecy, and it revealed something that was really rather cliche and boring, but you didn't really Wings of Liberty laid the foundation of what the further expansions are going to be about, and the further expansions could take it anywhere they wanted. they could have grown more complex. Like Wings of Liberty could have been easily used as a platform for introduction of characters. There is Horner, there is Valerian, there is New Kerrigan, there is Jimmy. Welcome all of them back. And now in Heart of the Swarm, the campaign will blossom and change and all that stuff. Spoiler alert, it didn't. But there were no alarm bells ringing when Wings of Liberty came out for that reason. Because, as I said, the introduction platform, perfectly acceptable for it to be, as a plot device, simple. It's like in a movie, like the first few movies, the first 3 minutes in a lot of movies are like introduction to all the characters. They rarely provide you with something cerebral. They just lay groundwork for your understanding of those things. So even though Wings of Liberty campaign was riddled with mental simplicity, I was not disappointed by it. In fact, I was excited by it because that's where my thoughts exactly. Things are only gonna get better from here. As for campaign itself, well, campaign itself was probably the best campaign I ever saw in a strategy game. It was very hard but very fun at the same time. It was a perfect blend of entertainment and challenge. And the campaigns and the achievements, they were all structured, missions. Missions and achievements were all structured in a way that each next one would provide the perfect addition of challenge to yourself. So it was fantastic, really. It was extremely great fun to play the campaign, and I was hooked for sure. And the level designs were amazing. My favorite one, and I think I mentioned it, is perhaps the Great Train Robbery. That was like, I was playing the campaign, and sort of before that it was like, alright, this is okay, and then I got to the Great Train Robbery, and I was like, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This is a cleverly designed, beautifully designed mission, beautifully designed level, and that's what I want from a strategy game. So, and I played a lot of single player, and there is an entertaining single player for sure. There is challenging single player for sure. I enjoyed Great Goo single player, Riddle Lord single player are pretty famous, mostly for being over the top, but I am perhaps not all that experienced in how different strategy game play when it comes to competitive multiplayer environment, but when it comes to single player, I played a lot of campaigns, and I honestly think Wings of Liberty still remains the best campaign I ever played, I ever seen. And I think that's also something they lost in the other expansions, Heart of the Swarm, the Legacy of the Void. I think the missions there are a bit too easy, but worse than that, missions can be too easy, that's fine, but worse than that, the additional achievements oftentimes acquired almost automatically and pretty boring or nonsensical, and there is also was addition of achievements that called mastery achievements, collective of achievements called mastery achievements, and that sort of is what brutal achievements were on Wings of Liberty, but at the same time, why not just do them in the first place? Why add all those completely free and completely boring and nonsensical achievements? But back to Wings of Liberty. So, to wrap up, and I feel like by the end of this I was a bit rambling on, as I said in the previous video and the all-in playthrough video. I was gonna write down on paper what I'm gonna say, and I did, but by the end of this I'm already a bit you can write down all the bullet points you want. If your mind starts to wander, you cannot do anything about it. Either way, as far as Wings of Liberty campaign goes, let not simple plot scare you away. And at this point I can say that let not any plot scare you away, because StarCraft 2, spoiler alert, plotline was effectively ruined by whatever came next. And I honestly got to say that if you want to have your memories of the goodness of Brood War remain innocent and uncorrupted, play Wings of Liberty but ignore all other expansions. Wings of Liberty is a masterpiece and is the best game of the series, and it provides a plot that doesn't insult you the way Heart of the Swarm and Legacy of the Void does, but it's a nicer introduction of the characters that you love. It's a get-together, it's a reunion, and it definitely is sweet, and you will enjoy it. And as far as challenge of the campaign, I think this is the best campaign of any game, strategy game I ever played, and I think that's fairly objective. As objective as a StarCraft 2 fan can be, of course. As far as my own adventure in Wings of Liberty, I quitted in the end of the first year of release. Then Grandmaster League was released and I tried to get in, but there were a lot of bugs with Grandmaster League, and I remember it was like sometimes it would lag after, if you came online first, it was like first come, first serve. So first 200 people who would play games would get into Grandmaster. And yeah, maybe at some point I wasn't good enough to get there, although it's probably not true. I got into Grandmaster twice, and that was when I was quitting, so that's when I was the worst shape I ever been. So yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it only took me this long to get into Grandmaster League, because of bugs. Although of course people like Hydra, for example, that's extreme skill level. People of that extreme skill level could always get into Grandmaster League. Well, not always. There were a couple of seasons when it was just bugged out and people couldn't get there. Either way, there were a lot of bugs, as it still goes, I think, with their hidden MMR calculations. I think they hide them because if competent people saw them, it would be unpleasant experience for everyone. But I really feel like despite all this making myself play StarCraft, and I didn't even want to just because I wanted Grandmaster, quitting and coming back, I'm thankful for that experience, because in the end I met a lot of good people while going to LAN events. I won 2 LAN events, which was a dream of mine. I won a lot of online events, and one of my other dreams that I never was able to accomplish in StarCraft 2 was go to a big LAN, and that I accomplished in Grey Goo when I went to Texas to their San Antonio PAX tournament. So I'm a big computer game fanatic, and you might say I'm a nerd, you might say I'm wasting my time, but the truth is those things were the things I wanted to do. And in the end I achieved a lot of them. The only one I didn't achieve now is getting a cup. I won a lot of tournaments, but I won I think over $1,000 in StarCraft, maybe $1,500 in StarCraft. I think my biggest cash was something like $250 plus hardware, probably worth another 250, so 500 overall. It's a pretty small tournament, and they never give you like a cup or a medal, and that's what I always wanted. You know, at that time I had income already. I wasn't unemployed anymore, so really, $500 doesn't make any difference to me financially. But the cup, those are memories. Memories are important. Memories are worth more than $500. So that's my only regret. And I sort of still desire to win a cup, a medal of some sort. And even if it's a singular medal, I think if you have one, your memories are with you. It will remind you of the good old days, no matter what. And I felt like I really had a good chance with the Grey Good Tournament series, but I failed there. But I was so satisfied with the fact that I managed to go to San Antonio for this event, met all those people, that I really haven't felt competitive at all since then. I felt like my competitive desires were satisfied, and maybe one day I'll get a cup in a different type of event, although those would bring whole different type of memories. But yeah, that's it pretty much. Campaign is good but simple. If you're a good old Brood War player, don't play past Wings of Liberty, but you will be, I think, very satisfied with Wings of Liberty. And as far as my multiplayer experience with StarCraft, it was a complicated and hard road to achieve what I wanted to achieve, but I did it, and I enjoyed it. So I think I apologize for rambling on bit on the end there, because as I said, this was originally intended to be a story about just campaign of Wings of Liberty, but I felt that when I started with how I bought beta key, I had to finish with quitting Wings of Liberty. But yeah, that wasn't. There were no bullet points for that. So that's definitely a lot of rambling on, and I apologize for that. But if you managed to watch it this far, I thank you for watching, and please watch my Heart of the Sword campaign. Some of the videos are already up. I'm certainly better playing Zerg than I am playing Terra. Alright, that is out. Bye bye.